So again, I'm Marquise, I'm your MC, and I'm just going to introduce our panelists. So I'll start with Dr. Muchapai Poi. So raise your hand, Dr. Muchapai. All right, everyone say hi to Dr. Muchapai. He's our current fifth year diagnostic radiology resident at Stony Brook. He'll be graduating from residency next year and pursuing a career in abdominal imaging fellowship at the University of Michigan. He earned his medical degree from Central Michigan University and his BS in health sciences from Hofstra University. So Dr. Poi was a scholar of the NOAA program and an active participant of the CSEP program while attending Hofstra. He also took part in a summer medical enrichment program, spending his time between Columbia Medical School and Mount Sinai Hospital, and he attributes much of his success to these programs. So his interests and hobbies include quality time with his daughter and wife, mentorship, and optimizing health in resource-poor settings. So now I'd like to introduce Dr. Saldivar. Dr. Saldivar. So he serves as an assistant medical director of healthcare epidemiology and is an infectious disease physician at Stony Brook. He attended the University of Washington School of Medicine, completed his residency at the NYU School of Medicine, and his fellowships at Tufts Medical Center in Boston. Before medical school, Dr. Saldivar completed a Bachelor of Music degree with a major in classical guitar performance and worked as a musician and later in the retail music industry. So changing directions, he worked at an oncology center, UCLA Medical Center, working during the day, taking pre-med courses in the evening at a community college, and eventually applied to medical school. And before coming to Stony Brook, Dr. Saldivar worked in private practice in California, and his passion for academic medicine and teaching brought him here. So now we'll introduce Dr. Cabrera. So he currently serves as the inaugural executive director of the Stony Brook Simmons STEM Scholars Program, which has the mission of recruiting and developing students who are interested in the graduate, PhD, and MD PhD pathways through undergraduate research experiences and mentoring. So in addition to leading such programs, Dr. Cabrera has firsthand experience as a participant, including the National Institutes of Health, Maximizing Access to Research Centers program, and the University of Maryland, Baltimore County Meyerhoff Scholars Program. So Dr. Cabrera earned a PhD in MS in pathology from New York University School of Medicine and a bachelor's degree in biological sciences from UMBC. And he has taught and mentored innumerable students at Farmingdale, UMBC, and NYU. So lastly, but not least, we'd like to introduce Dr. Pierre Glaude. So he's a board-certified orthopedic clinical specialist, certified strength and conditioning specialist. Dr. Pierre Glaude is a regional representative for the New York State Athletic Trainers Association, as well as a committee member of the New York Physical Therapy Association's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So Dr. Glaude earned both his Bachelor of Science in Athletic Training and Doctor of Physical Therapy degrees from Stony Brook University. Prior to joining the Doctor of Physical Therapy program, Dr. Glaude was a clinical assistant professor and clinical coordinator for the athletic training program within the School of Health Technology and Management. Currently, Dr. Glaude is completing his PhD in education at University of Buffalo and investigating cultural competency training in healthcare education. All right, so those are all our panelists, so warm round of applause for our panelists, please. Okay, so we'll get started with our first question. So the first question for our panelists will just be, what was your journey in either your career path or your path to medicine?
All right, so I'll start first. For the first the first thing I want to say is my journey is one I'm proud of, but I hope it's not one that that is a common story. Reason why I'm saying that is, as a physical therapist and an athletic trainer, I never met one. Until I came to college, but I knew this was something that I want to do. So I'm originally from Brooklyn, so first 5 minutes, you're gonna hear that if you meet someone from Brooklyn, we're gonna let you know, right? I'm also of Haitian descent, so as growing up in Brooklyn with Haitian parents, you can only be three things. Like, you can only be a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer. So parents would ask me all the time, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would say, football, soccer, baseball, whatever sport we were watching at the time. And my dad would always say, no, son, I want you to be a doctor. And I could remember in the third grade watching soccer with him, and somebody went down. and they ran onto the field. He didn't know who that person was, but he said, see, that's a doctor. You should think about that. Went on to Brooklyn Tech High School. Guidance counselors were steering me towards medicine. Was in the Minorities in Medicine program in high school. Was in STEP program in high school as well. And when I asked my guidance counselor came to me and said, what schools are you looking at? And I said, I want to help athletes get back to their previous condition after injuries. So this was around 1999. So she was like, oh, we have this new website called Google. I'm going to Google it for you. So I said, no problem. She came back with multiple professions. And I looked for schools that had those majors, and Stony Brook was one of them. And it's definitely one of the best decisions that I've made in my life. And I've been here for the last 21 years as either a student, a professional staff member, and now a faculty member in the School of Health Professions.
Good morning, I think. Is it morning still? Yeah, good morning, everyone. Reiterate, I'm Dr. Erwin Cabrera. I serve as the Executive Director of the Simon STEM Scholars Program. Just a quick plug, our program is a fully funded scholarship program to go to undergrad for those who want to pursue a PhD or MD PhD pathway. Tuition, room, board, housing, research costs. You want to fly to Harvard to do research in the summer, I will pay for it. So if you're interested, we do have a table in there. And I say that to say my story's going to come back around and you'll understand a bit why. So I'm originally from the DC area. Parents were immigrants, very much so, kind of the same story. I knew I liked medicine, but I knew I didn't want to treat patients because I just didn't want to be with people like that. But I loved science and I loved discovery, and I didn't want to be the one to treat the patient, but I wanted to discover what the medicine was like and why things worked. So very similar, I went to high school and one of my guidance counselors was like, hey, Erwin, really think about a PhD in this research pathway. And so essentially they connected me to a program at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County called the Meyerhoff Scholars Program, in which our program here at Stony Brook is modeled off of, that heads people towards research and biomedical research or research in whatever endeavor you want to go to, whether it's engineering or mathematics. And so from there, they connected me to NYU School of Medicine. And then, my research background is in neuro. So I studied Alzheimer's disease and proteins in the brain that implicated in the disease. I knew ultimately I wanted to go back to mentoring because without the program at UMBC, I would have never thought to do a PhD. It was never in my wheelhouse. I would have never just even dreamed of doing that. And so I wanted to kind of give back to the next generation. I knew that's where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. So when this came about, I'm fully administrative. So now I talk to students like y'all every day. Some of our scholars may be around here somewhere, but that's what I do on the day-to-day. I'm gonna move it on.
Right, I guess it's my turn. I don't have quite an impressive resume as this gentleman here do, but I will tell you my background is a little bit unusual as to how I arrived to medicine. I was born in Mexico. I moved to the US to get a degree in music. That's really what opened the door for me. I lived as a musician for a while. There's a lot of great things about it. There's also a lot of very isolating things about it. You are locked up in a room 8 hours a day practicing to get to the one moment in the stage, and that moment in the stage is amazing, but the rest of it is very, very isolating for me. I know for a lot of people it's amazing. For me, it was taking a toll. So I don't want to give you the full story because a lot of stuff happened in between the moment I decided medicine was not going to be the right path and actually arriving at medicine. I will tell you one thing. I always had a little bit of an idealist in me. And I remember applying for a job, and I swear to you, this is actually on my medical school application because this is something that is very true to me. I was at a job, to my med school application, I'm sorry. I was applying for a job, and one of the questions they asked me is, what would be your ideal job? And the answer just appeared in my mind was, I want to be part of something that's bigger than me, bigger than myself. And it was one of those things where you say the words and immediately you realize, yeah, this job is not for me. I got very, very, very lucky in that I met a number of people during those years. A couple of them were doctors, a couple of them were nurses, a couple of physical therapists, and that's kind of where the spark hit. Like, maybe this is something I should look into. And the next part that's also unusual about my voyage is that I did not start medical school until I was 36, which is, older than most people. I was, I think, the second oldest in my medical school class. And the beauty of that for me was that I got to experience a lot of stuff before I got to med school. I have plenty of friends who went, straight from high school to undergrad, did pre-med while they did that, and then into med school, and that worked extremely well for them. For me, I never had that, that's what I want to do, and that's it. For me, it was really experiencing a ton of stuff in between completing undergrad and then eventually landing in medical school, and I'm so thankful for that, because I feel that that's given me a certain perspective that I otherwise would not have had. And I'll pause right there, and I'll pass along the mic.
Hello, everyone. Oh, can you guys hear me? Yeah. Such inspirational stories from you guys. I'm a little in my journey. I'm a little like towards the end of it. I'm a radiology resident, almost closer to the light of being attending. But my journey really started back. Well, I was born in the Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo in Africa, Central Africa, and my early years, kind of grew up in a very, very unstable country, civil unrest. So a lot of what I experienced earlier in my life was, like civil war and just a lot of violence. My early inspiration, the person that I really looked up to was my father, and my father was a physician. He was the first one in his family. Was raised in, born in the village, really the first one to really go to, the equivalent of like high school and college. And he got a scholarship to go to Europe and continue his training. And then he made a choice to come back to a country that was, not necessarily the best place for him to practice medicine, because he just loved his country so much. And so I really admired his passion to come back and really make a difference in an environment where, there wasn't really so much hope. So I really looked up to my father, and when the country got so bad, he was able to find a way to get his kids here in the States. So he sent us, my brothers and I, there's 7 of us in the family, to come out, to seek refuge here in the States. And the benefits of that was that we were able to get education. I'm here, but I think earlier on, really just seeing, my father as a role model really kind of set me on this path to be in medicine, and coming to the States and really seeing the differences in how things were in the States compared to, what it was in my country, really kind of reinforced this idea that, healthcare was something that I needed to do, and, in my country specifically, that there was so much more we had to accomplish. So that really just set me on this path to seek medicine and get into a career in medicine. So now, my college years, honestly, I always say that, it takes a village, and for me, it's as I look back and just reflect on just like my journey, I couldn't have made it, here where I am by myself. Throughout college, I was very involved in like the C-STEP program. The NOAA program at Hofstra was an EOP program that offered me an opportunity to go to college. Otherwise I wouldn't have gone, because I just we couldn't afford it. And it really opened doors through mentorship. People who believed in me, people who saw my passion to what I wanted to accomplish. And that has kind of just gotten me through. Really a passion to really serve underserved or under-resourced communities has really just been the driving force to do what I'm doing. And it's almost kind of taken a turn as well, because I always saw myself doing more clinical type based medicine, as in like, you know, internal medicine and, you know, where you see patients predominantly, but like, it's almost taken a turn in that, like, I'm in radiology, and it's like, you know, the background, right? Like, we're the imaging specialist, and, you know, a lot of what I do affects patient care, but like, you don't see us all the time, and and just being able to do what I'm doing at this level, I feel like I'm affecting change in a different way. You know, with wanting to serve, you know, my country in the Congo. You know, there's no access to imaging. You know, many communities don't have access to imaging, and so I'm finding different ways of being creative to you know, affect change in that way. But just to round it up, I just think my journey in medicine has, you know, been a result of many different actors, many agents that have really pushed me forward and propelled me, and, you know, really just believed in me to continue. So.
Thank you, panelists, for all those answers. So before we get into a Q&A session with the students, if you guys can just quickly run through what is the day-to-day life for you, you know, in terms of if a student was thinking, I want to be a physical therapist or researcher or a doctor, like, what is my life going to look like? If you all can just, you know, quickly run through a day-to-day.
For sure, I guess, with the mic. So radiologist, no one really knows what that is. Honestly, I didn't even know what that was in med school. I kind of stumbled on the specialty. But radiologists were like, you know, medical imaging specialists. Basically, everyone who comes to the hospital gets some kind of imaging, X-ray, CT, MRI. So we are the ones who interpret that, and we're the consultants. You know, your physicians order these imaging studies, and we provide an interpretation of what we do. Of what we found, and then that dictates how patients are managed in the hospital, or else, you know, whichever setting that they are. So my day-to-day, you know, I come in typically in the hospital between 7:30 to 8 a.m. And I'm, you know, predominantly in the reading room, quote unquote. But the reading room is, you know, basically our, you know, we got these special gadgets, computers, where we're, you know, interpreting the images. You know, we're interpreting images from patients who are admitted to the hospital, or they're coming into the emergency room, or they're at an outpatient center somewhere. And you know, we're doing that up until, like, you know, maybe 12, 1 o'clock. And we have conferences, interdisciplinary conferences where we, you know, tumor boards, where we discuss, you know, complex cases that, you know, clinicians are struggling with in terms of how, you know, how they want to treat patients. And so we're pulled in that direction to kind of provide our expertise on, you know, what is actually going on in you know, in the patient's care from a medical imaging perspective. You know, some of us also do procedures. So, you know, there's this myth that, you know, radiologists just sit in front of a computer all day, not talking to anyone. But we do see patients. We do imaging, guided type procedures. I know there was an ultrasound station I hear. I'm not sure if you guys got a chance to do it, but, you know, using ultrasound or X-ray, CTs, we do a bunch of procedures during the day, you know, and typically you're assigned on the procedure service, you know, where you do that, or sometimes you can kind of do a little bit of both, where you're reading half the time and then you're doing procedures half the time. So, you know, that just continues kind of like the flow. And then, you know, we also kind of interact with, you know, our technologists and our you know, clinicians will call us, ask us questions about, oh, you know, I want to answer this clinical question, like what type, you know, what modality, you know, should I get an MRI or CT for this patient to answer? And we kind of guide them in terms of, like, you know, appropriateness of what imaging should be, you know, should be ordered to answer whatever question that they have. So we're constantly on the phone with our referring providers. You know, sometimes patients call us if they have questions about what we say in their imaging reports. We are part of conferences where we provide our expertise. And there's also a bunch of teaching, you know, medical students coming through our service, and we teach them. That's just kind of like the, you know, good you know, just a general overview of what, you know, a radiologist does. So, yeah. I hope that answers or clarifies what radiology is about.
So I will start by giving a huge shout out to our radiology colleagues, because everything we do is heavily reliant on the information they can provide us. So it's a hugely important field that often is underestimated. So thanks for being there, man. On my side, my field is infectious diseases. Usually when you are considering medicine, or once you've reached medical school and are thinking of which residency to seek, typically the first division is going to be, do I want to go to a procedural-based specialty or to an intellectual one? Infectious diseases is one of the huge fields of the intellectual side. Things like nephrology, endocrinology, infectious diseases all fall within that category. What I mean by that is a surgeon is obviously going to be procedure-based. A cardiologist is going to have many more procedures than we do. They'll, anything from putting stents in your heart, stuff like that. The stuff that we do is all up here. A lot of putting pieces together, a lot of putting stories together. I always tell residents, if you are somebody who likes storytelling, infectious disease is a perfect program for you, and I won't bore you with all the details of that, but it's definitely one to consider. As far as what I do on a day-to-day basis, roughly 80% is direct patient care, either in the wards, looking at people who are admitted. We act as consultants, meaning we are a subspecialty. When somebody is admitted, usually they're put under a main team, which is either surgical or medical, and once there's a complication where the primary has hit a little bit of a wall and they need more specialized counsel, that's when they call us. And the other 20% of my time is spent doing things, epidemiology, which means rather than just looking at the one person in front of me, looking at the overall hospital. If somebody came in the one room and they have tuberculosis, how do we make sure that all the nurses going in and out are not infected, don't become infected themselves? How do we make sure that the patients in the rooms adjacent stay safe as well, and so on and so forth? So combination of epidemiology / infection prevention. Our department has had a huge role, as you can imagine, the last couple of years with this thing called COVID that you may have heard of. And then when the Mpox epidemic, events like that, we immediately become involved to protect not just the patients themselves, which is obviously a huge portion and what drives everything, but also the staff that's caring for the patients.
So my day-to-day is a bit complex. I wear two hats, and I'll talk about the researcher side first. I would say on the research laboratory side, I kind of compare it to being an artist. I know that's wild to think about, but it really is going crazy with what you believe, whatever your theory is, what you want to test. Let's say, I don't know, this drug may work in a certain way. How do we solve that issue? What are things that we need to do in the laboratory to do that? And who do we talk to? What I would say in talking to you all is collaboration is key, no matter what hat I'm wearing. So like life is a group project. I know a lot of us don't like that, but reality is a lot of my day is meetings and group projects, whether it's with a laboratory space and dealing with human brain samples and working with clinicians to get those things, or on the other side of things, being on administration, working and understanding how to develop and build a program. On the other hand, on my administrative hat, what I do on day-to-day is really talk to young people like yourselves, hand out scholarships, which is a joy to me and such a blessing to be in this position. And finding people with the potential to go into and change the world very much so, like my colleagues up here are doing. And so I'll just hand it off.
All right, so I wear many hats as well. So my primary job here at Stony Brook is I'm a faculty member in the School of Health Professions, but I'm gonna take some time to talk about what I do clinically. So clinically, I have a small physical therapy practice nearby the university where I treat patients 4 afternoons/evenings a week. And on the service side, I work with the U.S. National Amputee Soccer team. I'm the director of sports medicine and sports performance. So I'll go through what I do on the clinic side and also in adaptive sports. So clinic side, you never know what's going to happen. Patients come in to be evaluated. All you get is a name and maybe their email and a date of birth. You might get a body part, right? So you have to evaluate the patient, ask some questions, do your physical exam, and then come up with a plan of care that is appropriate for for their treatment. I see my patients about, most of them, I would say on average twice a week. And most of my patients have orthopedic conditions. I'm board certified orthopedic clinical specialist in physical therapy. So your sprains, your strains, fractures, after surgery, post-ops. I get a lot of athletes as well. And on the adaptive sports side, I travel around the country sharing the sport of amputee soccer. And then I also travel internationally with our men's, and now we have a women's team that compete in many different countries. The thing that is that brings me the most fulfillment working with those athletes is that when we go to other countries, a lot of them don't have a medical provider that is assigned to them. And so pushing on the world stage to have these athletes receive appropriate medical care is a passion of mine. And you also have to be creative. Nothing in my schooling taught me how to evaluate someone with a limb difference or evaluate someone who uses crutches for athletic competition. So you really have to think a little bit outside of the box in how you're going to evaluate them and also get them better.
Awesome. Thank you, panelists. So we're going to jump into a Q&A session, and then we'll do lunch afterwards. So for any student who's brave and bold enough, you'll get a surprise gift if you ask a question. All right. We'll go with, you had your hand up first, black jacket behind you. Yeah, you. Hold on. You black jacket. Yeah, red lanyard ticket. Sorry, I don't know what else to say, but go ahead. You want to better our mic?
My question for you guys is, did you have a person that inspired you to actually go into the medical field, or did you just decide to go into it on your own?
I don't think anything is ever done on your own. I think what I tell scholars all the time in my program is you see the success, you don't see the struggle, right? I can't speak for my colleagues here. I've cried countless times during my training, getting to this point, and mentorship is key, right? And so finding someone who has an invested interest in you as a person is probably one of the most important things you could do, not just career trajectory, but life in general. For me, it was the director of the Meyerhoff Scholars Program at UMBC, who really encouraged me to seek interest in research and to develop that as a pathway and do it in a way that I didn't have to pay. So,
One of my favorite quotes from, and I'll keep this short, I promise, but I believe it was Sir Isaac Newton who said, if I've seen far, it's only because I was able to stand on the shoulders of giants. I don't think any of us would be here without having met someone, even if it wasn't a clinician. For me, it was my sailing instructor. I was going through an incredibly difficult time when I met him, and I remember meeting him, and he just had this aura about him, like such calmness that I didn't have, and I was like, whatever he's doing it right, so I need to learn from this guy. And to this day, we're very close friends. So whether it's a clinician, whether it's a friend, whether it's a professional, once you find those people, establish a relationship with them, because it will only help you grow as a person.
We have a question over here.
I would like to know how hard is it to like manage your responsibilities and stuff?
Sorry, manage what? I didn't catch that.
How hard is it to like manage all your responsibilities?
Got it. You guys want to take it? You want me to?
I'm going to break the rules a little bit. Can I answer both questions real quick? All right. I'll answer your question. How do I manage my responsibilities? I'm a big quote guy. So I remember reading this quote when I was in high school. I think it said, if you pick a job you love, you never have to work a day in your life. So honestly, I don't even feel like I work. I hope my boss is not in here. But I really don't feel like I work because I'm passionate about everything that I do. I feel lucky and privileged to be able to stand in front of students and get to shape the face of healthcare in the future. I feel privileged to work with my patients as well because they trust me, and that's a big responsibility that I don't know if everyone really understands what that means for someone to be that transparent and vulnerable with you. And just quick to answer the previous question, if I were to pick, I can't pick one person that inspired me to get into medicine, but short answer will be family. And I'm going to say family because my father actually started medical school in Haiti and had to come to the United States and drive a taxi. My mom was in nursing school in Haiti and then came to the United States to be a nurse's aide. And my grandmother at 97, who passed away recently, never got a chance to go to school, never was illiterate, and memorized portions of the Bible and prayed for me every single day. And so I knew that I had to do something to change the lives of people in my community and to honor them as well.
I'll add one more thing to the responsibility aspect. I think something I heard somebody tell me a while back was how the concept of responsibility scares a lot of people. And this person told me, for them, responsibility was actually a great thing because it empowered them. And all of a sudden, you being able to be at the helm and say, this is going to be my next step, or at least I'm going to start creating a strategy for how I'm going to approach it. So a lot of it, I would say discipline is going to be huge, whatever field you go into, and finding a way to organize yourself is also going to, and just really embracing that concept of responsibility.
Just want to piggyback on what you said. The responsibilities, it's almost like very, very humbling, and it's as a radiologist, what brings me the most joy is being able to find like a critical finding on an imaging study and calling the referring physician, or sometimes even the patient, right? Because sometimes they get these images while they're like, at an outpatient center, calling them and like letting them know, hey, listen, like there's something funky going on here, like make sure like it's being done, right? So part of my responsibility is catching things that could, potentially harm a patient and, doing something about it and getting the satisfaction that even though the patient didn't meet me or see me doing whatever I was doing, just being pride, having pride that like I affected change. So I love responsibilities.
Okay, we have a question over here as well.
My question is, how do you balance work and outside of work, in terms of your research and hanging out with family, going to events, how do you manage all of that?
Balancing. I'm gonna be very honest. It's kind of been very rough for me lately with balancing. I have I wouldn't call her a newborn now, but she's turning 2. So I have a baby, and I'm in training, and so I thought I'd had some kind of balance, but the baby kind of disturbed it all. And I'm just trying to find a new normal, and for me, I get the greatest joy when I'm done with work at home and really just treasuring the precious moments I have with my toddler, and so for me, balance is really just having peace and time outside of work to just spend time with my family, my daughter, taking her out and stuff. So I think that rejuvenates me, and I come back to work feeling oh yeah, I'm ready to work again. So.
It's an amazing question because it's something I can probably say, and slap me if I'm wrong, but I think we all have dealt with it at some point. For me personally, I think because of the fact that I didn't go straight from med school to from college to med school, I was lucky enough to have that realization that unless you have an outlet, you're gonna drive yourself nuts. So just for me personally, it has been having something that's unrelated to work that I can, at the end of the day or on a weekend go do my own thing. You're gonna laugh, but for me it's been archery. because there's something that it does to me. It's my form of meditation. And having that, where I can completely clear my mind and take myself out of my own brain, and then being able to go back to work, that's what does it for me, but I think it's a little different for everybody.
Yeah, I'll just add one last thing to that question. The reality of is each chapter in your life requires a different type of balance. I think what you have to start mastering, and everybody talks about time management, like we talk about it from the time you're in middle school all the way to high school, is that each chapter and whatever venture you're in at that moment requires something different. So really what you have to master is looking at what you have on your plate currently and how you can take and subtract or add different things. And that's really where it comes in the balance. Sometimes, and I can speak for all of us, we just fumble. Like it just is, and you have to learn the hard way. But in that learning, you will get better and better at it. I'm one of those people that I probably will never master it, but we try day to day to be better.
I just wanted to ask, did you guys always want to be in a field of helping people and everything? Like, or do you just like medicine?
I'll tell you a little bit my story. I mentioned earlier how there's a little bit of an idealist on me. That was always a drive to do something that was beyond myself. I didn't realize it was medicine until much later. Initially, I thought it was music. And then I realized that's not the path for me. But yes, for me, it had to be something that was a service to others. And the other huge realization I had, I read an article, an essay a while back on self-management. And I'm paraphrasing here, but the writer said something along the lines of a lot of people who are idealists, they think ideas move mountains. The reality is bulldozers move mountains. The ideas tell the bulldozers where to start digging. So whatever ideal you have has to be well balanced with just a touch of realism so that you can take that idea and take it to fruition.
For me, for sure, I always felt the calling to serve, humanity or people, just because of I mentioned my background, being raised in Congo and just really just being surrounded by so much, violence and war, and so I've always been called to feel like I needed to serve my fellow human being. It's the career aspect in terms of healthcare. I think the first career that I was exposed to was healthcare. Was my dad, being in medicine and everything, and so I just felt that being able to heal someone and set them on their way. I mean, in my opinion, felt like a more a more effective way to impact someone's life, right? So that's kind of just how I felt like healthcare was the best for me.
So as an athletic trainer, right? Do you focus more on preparation or injury, after athlete gets injured?
So I think it's multifaceted, and it depends on how you're employed. So if you're employed by a team or a college or high school, I would say the primary emphasis would be on prevention of athletic injuries. So that's where I think you can make your biggest impact, is hopefully not having as many injuries as possible. And then obviously after that, if that occurs, treating that injury and also educating your patients on ways to mitigate that, so ways to decrease the incidence of that injury.
My question is, how do you manage the financial burden of attending medical school?
So I'll speak from my standpoint. most people don't know, all PhDs in the STEM fields in the United States are fully funded. So that is fully paid for, stipend, whatever. To get a PhD in the United States is fully funded. So I didn't drop a dime for that part of my education. And if you're interested in the research medicine pathway, MD PhDs are also fully funded. So just a train of thought, but I'll also.
Yeah, so it is expensive. You know, for me, it's all right. A couple of things. It's you know, the greatest investment you can make is in yourself. That's one, and two, there are ways to, you know, to kind of go about around that. I'll give you an example. So, you know, I got you know, to attend college, I did get a scholarship through the NOAA program at Hofstra, so that paid for a significant amount of my tuition there. Med school was, you know, I took out loan to go through, to get myself through med school. And then, you know, I'm a resident now. I'm not taking any loans, but I'm in the process of paying them back. But there are programs with the government that I'm utilizing, public loan forgiveness, where, you know, they take into account your income and, you know, your life situation and, you know, a very reasonable minimum payment for all of that stuff. So, and then once you're out practicing as an attending, there are ways you can kind of, you know, get those loans forgiven if you work in like a government entity facility or public facility. Working at Stony Brook, you are a state employee, and so you know, you know, you make a certain amount of payments. That is, I believe, is like, was it 10 payments or 120 payments total, and then your loans get forgiven. So there are, it's when you look at it at the beginning, you know, of how expensive it is, you're like, oh man, like I can't afford it. But once you get in and like you know, you go through the pipeline, there are, it's definitely reasonable in terms of like you having to pay it back. You know, I have loans, but I'm also looking at, you know, my earning potential at the end of the road. You know, I'm gonna be all right, right? So I made an investment, I made a bet in myself, and it was worthwhile, and, you know, I'm gonna be okay with paying my debts, so.
And since you all are closer to the college space, I do want to give advice in terms of paying for undergrad, right? It is difficult to find these kinds of scholarship programs, like ones like the one I'm running now, but they're out there. You have to do the work to go find it. You have to be hungry for it. You have to apply for it. You have to search, but it is possible to get them. What I'll say is New York in particular has a lot of mechanism, the Excelsior Scholarship, there's other programs like EOP, the Simon Sem Scholars here that's fully funded, right? But you have to find it. I think oftentimes we feel like they have to land in our lap, right? But listen to the people around you. If you came with a teacher that loves you here, a guidance counselor that loves you, please listen to them. I cannot reiterate how many students in our program, the Simon Sem Scholars Program, today said, I only applied to this because my counselor told me to. And it literally changed their life. It changed my life. So just heed that warning, just listen. I know sometimes it may be annoying, especially in the college process, especially when you have all these extracurriculars, but you don't know what that one effort can do to change your life.
Last thing I will add to that, be ready to hear no, and that is completely okay. I believe it was Bruce Lee who said the difference between the master and the beginner is the beginner has not failed enough times. So you will find a lot of people who will tell you no, move past them and move on to the next one and keep on applying. And if your sight is on it, you will get there. You just need to know to keep on searching.
To answer your question, I know, that's a real life question. I know personally, my parents, going into college, my parents gave me a kiss, a handshake, and told me good luck. And they did give me food on weekends though. But either way, how I went to Stony Brook undergrad and grad. Undergrad, I was an RA, so I was a resident assistant, so that paid for my room and board. I did special events. I worked for athletics. I worked at Macy's in the summer. I did summer conference housing in the summer. So sometimes you got to hustle in school too. So I hustled and got my education paid for that way. Grad school, I got my doctorate in physical therapy here. I took loans. I worked as the head athletic trainer at Mount Sinai School District while I was in school to help defray some costs. I did the public service loan forgiveness. Thank God that's over with. 10 years of that, and I'm actually still a student. I'm getting my PhD at University of Buffalo, and because I'm an employee here in the SUNY system, so that's being paid for as well. Hopefully, when this event is next year, I'll be done with that process.
Awesome. So we just want to wrap up now and thank all our panelists. We hope you learned a lot.